All right, so this is the introductory video for the PFA SBT videos that I'm going to be putting together for you guys to use as training. So we're just going to go through some of the concepts and interventions that you need for the whole entire procedure. So the first thing that I want you to know is that PFA SBT is really designed for severe problem behavior. It works for any behavior, any profile kid, but there's some specific things that would need to be kind of changed and added because it is really designed for severe problem behavior. The next thing I want you to know is the difference between what they call low and loose and tall and tight. So low and loose is when you're kind of on the floor, on the level with the learner, kind of giving them the indication that they are free to kind of choose what they want to do. Tall and tight is kind of almost like a soldier or a teacher. You'll be standing over the kid. You want this really tight discrimination between your two different states of where you're progressing the EO and where you're allowing them to stay in reinforcement. So when you're in low and loose, your learner is kind of in their reinforcement state, and it's very important that you're not touching their stuff, you're not running over to them, you're not impinging on their state. You're just kind of low and loose, kind of on the floor. Now, if they turn towards you, you can interact with them, you can kind of, but once they turn away, again, you're kind of going back. Right, so the next piece of that, the really important thing here is that you've got this ongoing vigilance, right? So I'm watching my learner at all times, watching for signals that they're getting upset, that a problem behavior is beginning, that they're demanding for attention, that they want me to interact. So it's very important that I'm not turned away taking notes, that I don't have my back to them, that I'm not having a conversation with another adult in the room. So I constantly want that vigilance really trained on the child that I'm working with. The next thing I want to point out is that we, at all times during PFA SBT, is there's an open door policy, right? So at all times, they have the option to opt out of treatment. They can leave. So that's really where it's important to follow this step by step, because as I know with a lot of your learners, you'll be like, well, they're just going to run out. That's a problem. That's why you want to stick to the fidelity of this intervention. We're not going to do accepting no or wait programs because that's built into PFA SBT. You'll learn more about that as we go, but it's a really natural part of this system. The next thing we want to talk about is really how much time you need to do this. So in order to really effectively do PFA SBT, you need at least 4 to 5 hours of this per week. So not 4 or 5 hours where this is part of the hour, like you need 4 to 5 full hours per week of PFA SBT intervention. During those hours, each hour you need at least 20 opportunities for the EO to be presented and for it to, so basically you're turning the behavior on and turning it off, as we'll talk about. So each hour where you're working, you need 20 of those opportunities. Next thing is that, during this procedure, you're going to be encouraging perseverance. And we'll kind of talk about that as we go, but there's times where they might start engaging in some low-level problem behavior where you're going to say things like, hey man, I know this is hard, but I've seen you do it before. I think you can do it. Let's try. Where you're really kind of encouraging them to endure, to persevere, even though it is hard. We have a 10 trial rule. That's Dr. Hanley kind of made that and puts it through the PFA SBT system. So if you go 10 trials and it's not getting better, nothing's changing, you need to change what you're doing. So that's something that anyone doing this, BHT, RBT, BCBA, whoever is doing it, they should be able to make that choice on the go. 10 trials, no progress, let's try something different. We're always going back to HRE after every step. You want everything to end in happy, relaxed, and engaged. And that's how you want to leave the learner at the end of every session. Give them back to the caregiver with a smile on their face. Don't leave when they're tantruming. So we always want to end everything we do with HRE before you move on to something else. And then the final thing that we'll put into this video is that after 3 independent presentations of any of these stages, that's when you're ready to move on to the next. So that's like the mastery criteria. There's some flexibility in there that we can talk about, but that's kind of the overall rule.